productivity through non-agricultural activities. For the case in Indonesia, Pak Teguh Dartanto has proven Arthur Lewis theorem. Leaving the agricultural sector significantly increased the welfare of poor agricultural households in Indonesia. Regarding the role of cash transfer program itself, Ibu Balboni emphasized that it is important for the government to focus on welfare policies that change the productive activities of the poor. Previous studies on the Hopeful Family Program mostly focus on primary outcomes. Maybe the closely related study in Indonesia is research conducted by Pak Cahyadi, because they implicitly observe the impact of the program on productive asset. So here we aim to examine whether the Hopeful Family Program has potential sideway impact for agricultural households to make more productive livelihood strategies after 6 years of implementation. Also aim to explore the heterogeneous impact of the program among subgroups of the beneficiaries. For the coverage, we only look at the impact on more productive livelihood outside the agricultural sector, which is working in the non-farm wage employment and also entering in non-farm micro enterprises, NFE. Here, this section provides an overview of the Hopeful Family Program and its evaluation design. The program was first implemented in late 2007 and covered 7 provinces as shown in the picture on the left. From the picture on the right, we can see the timeline of the design evaluation of the program, which was carried out in 6 provinces of the 7 pilot provinces, except West Sumatra. Randomization for this design evaluation was carried out at the sub-district level or kecamatan. The picture in this slide provides an overview of the mechanism of how cash transfer alters livelihood outcomes, as well as the conceptual framework that we use in our research. Cash transfer provides an additional source of income for beneficiaries, which can ultimately loosen the household budget constraint. Cash transfer can encourage beneficiaries toward riskier activities by changing the type of work they do, like self-employment or maybe migration to the other sector. Cash transfer also improve beneficiaries' capability in making more strategic livelihood choices. Payment assistance can influence the role of beneficiaries in social network by enhancing resharing arrangement and also economic collaboration, which can affect their ability to engage in productive activities. A number of literatures divide the factors that influence non-farm activities into push and pull factors. In this case, we explore the heterogeneity of impact based on push factors, dividing subgroups based on agricultural land ownership and also gender, while pull factors are based on specific location, whether in Java or outside Java, in industrial area or not, as well as the distance to district or market. The main data source that we use are experimental data in 2007 and 2013. As you can see in the picture on the right, this is a chart of the sample we observe and how we define livelihood outcomes. We define agricultural household from the main occupation sector of the household head at the time of the baseline survey. Then we observe changes in their livelihoods during the follow-up survey. In determining the empirical strategy on experimental data, the first thing we look at is the compliance rate at the time of the follow-up survey. In the actual implementation, there is a compliance issue from the original random allocation. From the table, it can be seen that of the 8,000 something agricultural households that were sampled in the study, about 2,925 did not comply. This means that as many as 2,398 households in treatment sub-district report that they did not receive the assistance of the program. Therefore, we use the instrumental variable estimation approach, which is the instrument we use is the sub-district lottery status, where the only way this variable affect the outcome is only through the actual program beneficiaries. Here, we know that non-compliant experimental data give us the opportunity to see the impact from two perspectives. So we decide to analyze the placement effect and also the participation effect. For the placement effect, we analyze using intention to treat or ITT with the first regression specification on the slide. You can see number 1, specification regression, where the treatment is, we assume that all households in the treatment subdistrict comply with the random allocation. As for participation effect on the right, we analyze using the IV estimation with the second regression specification. The treatment of interest in this case is from the IV estimation is the actual program beneficiaries. It should be a note that the result of IT tend to be underestimated if we compare it to the IV estimates. Although we use RCT data in the regression specification, we also include control variables as shown in the slide, notation H and notation V, where the selection of control variables takes into account the result of characteristic balancing test between treatment and control subdistrict, as shown in the next slide. So from the result of the balancing test, it can be seen that there are several statistically significant differences. To be specific, like household characteristics, village characteristics, agricultural assets, and community participation. So we add these differences to the regression specification. Okay, this is the main result of our research. This table contains the main empirical results. Panel A for the first outcome and panel B for the second outcome. The ITT estimation result show that the impact of the allocation of the program increase the likelihood of agricultural household to work in non-farm wage employment. When village characteristics are included in the regression specification, the ITT estimation show that the effect of allocation of the helpful family program on the likelihood of agricultural household to enter the non-farm enterprise is significant, statistically significant. And from column 5 to 8 in the table, so that the estimation result of equation 2 using IV approach. But before we discuss it, let's see the result of the first stage on the following slide. The important points from the result of the first stage here is the coefficient generated from equation 3 is the compliance rate, which can explain the differences in the coefficient produced by ITT and IV. The higher the compliance rate, the ITT result will be closer to IV estimates. We are going back to the previous slide. As we predict that the ITT result tend to be biased downward if we compare it to the IV result. From column 8, panel A, it can be said that agricultural households receiving the program are 4.42 percentage point more likely to work in non-farm wage employment compared to the control subdistrict, which means an increase of 28% in the number of households pursuing more productive livelihood activities through participation in non-farm wage employment at 5% significance level. From panel B, we know that the agricultural household that receive the program have a 4.35 percentage point likely to enter the NFE compared to the control subdistrict. So the next 3 slides, we discuss about the heterogeneous effect of the program, because we know that most of the beneficiaries have very low of education. We explore a sample subgroup of permanent and casual worker. It turned out that the full family program only had a statistically significant effect on agricultural households to work as casual workers outside the agricultural sector. Next, let's take a look at the heterogeneous effect of the program on based on push factors. We can see that although most of the beneficiaries do not own land, the impact of the program is statistically significant for landholder household. Another push factor is also interesting, which is a gender. We know that it can be seen that the livelihood effect of the program is only statistically significant for male-headed households. However, although the impact is not statistically significant for female-headed household to entering NFE, we can see that the percentage of female-headed household entering NFE in the treatment sub-district is higher than male-headed households. So this is the result of based on pull factors, the specific location describe the difference in economic opportunity between regions. We classify a district as an industrial area if the contribution of manufacturing and services sector to GRDP is more than 50%, as can be seen in the picture on the left. The majority of poor agricultural households are located in areas with few job opportunities outside the agricultural sector, although the distribution of the sample is mostly located in Java. Interestingly, the livelihood effect of the Hopeful Family Program is even greater in non-industrial area. Another pull factor is distance. As we can see, distance in the table, distance is often translated as transaction cost faced by household in participating in labor market. The Hopeful Family Program is only able to facilitate agricultural households living closer to the district center, which have a lower transaction cost than those who living further away from the district center. However, although the Hopeful Family Program does not facilitate households living far from the district center to work in non-farm wage employment, the inducing effect of the Hopeful Family Program actually encourage those who live far away to enter the NFE. Finally, in conclusion, this study reveals that the Hopeful Family Program has a positive sideway effect on the ability of beneficiaries to make more productive livelihood activities. Unfortunately, the magnitude of the impact of the program on working in non-farm wage employment is only significant for casual workers. The positive impact of the Hopeful Family Program on entering NFE is expected to be a more promising solution for the government to help poor rural population to get out of the poverty trap. Thus, from the heterogeneous effect, we can conclude that to help poor agricultural households graduate from poverty, especially entering non-farm enterprise, the government must focus on the complementary program Graduasi Berdikari Sejahtera policy on specific subgroups like the landless agricultural household, female-headed agricultural households, and also agricultural households residing in industrial area and near district or markets. Okay, and that conclusion brings us to the end. Thank you so much for your time and your attention.
Thank you so much, Mbak Efi. Can I assume that Mbak Efi has become the key presenter for this paper, Mas Rus'an? You're not presenting for this paper, yes, but you're happy to take question, right? The Q&A. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Good. So basically, we allocate 30 minutes for each paper, so that includes question and answer. So let's now just take 2 questions, and then we'll see if we still have time. The first question is Pak Budi Reso Sudarmo. So silakan, Mas Budi.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So 2 things. One is that it seemed to me that the way that you look at the channel on how PKH will influence the outcome is more through relaxing budget constraint. But the fact that you take a specific case of agriculture, I think there are other more channels that you need to see, particularly on the conditional aspect of PKH, which is requiring children to go to school, that could actually restrict family labor participation, and so could have a negative effect. So whether that is actually affecting or not, I think that will be an interesting issue. Second is on this is I'm a bit not that certain when you keep talking about RCT and then you actually instrument it. The RCT component will be most likely gone by the instrument. So for example, you compare two data. One is come from RCT, and then you do instrument, and the same data set doing the same thing, but not RCT, and then you instrument it. It's basically equivalent because the instrument has been making that your variable of interest is exogenous. So I don't know whether you would like to put emphasis that, well, your data is RCT, but then at the end you actually instrument the data. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Budi. Rus'an, do you want to address those questions?
Yeah, thank you, Pak Budi. Maybe Efi can add some more point later. For the first point, yeah, we keen to see the balancing test later on the conditionality aspect, in which at the current form might be not that explicit, but we do so believe that among the treatment and control group, they are comparable enough in most of socio-demographic aspect, but we will explicitly put them in the balancing test. That's very useful suggestion. And the second one is actually considering the take up of the PKH program, in which we know that after 6 years of the N-line survey, not all of the intended household who become the treated group is actually receiving the treatment. So the IV estimate is just to show how these imperfect compliers might have a consequence on the impact estimate. But overall, we don't see any inconsistency amongst intention to treat and the IV estimate itself. So,
but
yeah.
can you still call it RCT if you have instruments there?
Yeah, in the sense that the issue is actually coming from non-random participation process, and it is severe. We cannot say it's RCT, but precisely when we do robustness test on this issue by performing IV, it's just showing that yes, there is an issue, but the issue is not that worrying.
Mm-hmm. But Efi, do you want to add to that?
Efi, you want to
Yes,
say something?
yeah, I want to add some explanation related to the first question. Yes, Pak Budi, thank you. Another channel that can be used to see the impact of the program on livelihood outcome is through future generation. I absolutely agree with you, because some literature that we have read, we know that conditional and unconditional cash transfer can have effect labor market outcomes of targeted beneficiaries with children through two distinct groups. The first one is through their parents, and the second one is through their children. But unfortunately, because we are looking at the change of their livelihood from the baseline to the follow-up survey, the data related to the changes of the sector, main sector of their children is not available from the RCT data. So we cannot see through the channel from the future generations. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one more question if anyone wants to ask. No. So on that last point from Pak Budi, Rus'an, so the PKH, it's can we do this for both conditional and unconditional cash transfer?
Can you say it again, Pajak, on the last?
Can we apply this to both conditional and unconditional cash transfer?
So you are suggesting that the external validity also hold for, like,
Yeah.
BLT, for example?
Right.
In this case, we might think very different mechanism of delivering the cash transfer, in which the one is more oriented to any use, and the second one is more tight in terms
Right.
of conditionality. I don't think that's quite apply to what we know recently as BST, for example,
Right.
because yeah, the internal validity only applies for those who has made conditionality on education and health aspect of the whole member as PKH requires.
Right.
That's maybe my view.
Okay.
Maybe you, yeah.
No, it's enough, Pak.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Pak Rus'an, Ibu Efi. Let's now move to the second paper, oh, unless there is another burning question. Is there anyone wanting to ask question? No? Okay, that's good. We're good in terms of time, because we're supposed to start the second paper in 2:15. So we're ahead of time by 2 minutes. That's good. Thank you for Ibu Efi and Pak Rus'an for making it very efficient. So let's now move to the second paper. And that second paper is titled District Level Income Convergence Analysis Across Java during 2011 to 2019. A spatial econometrics approach. And the presenter is Immanuel Pekerti from Universitas Gadjah Mada. I understand this presentation is with Ibu Efi, Noor, Afifah, but I don't think she's here. So I'm assuming Pak Immanuel will present by himself. So
Yes, sir.
okay, over to you, Immanuel.
Thank you, Pak Jo. Greetings to
Yep.
Pak Jo and to my fellow presenters, Mbak Efi, Pak Rus'an, Pak Anwar, Pak Udin Secaini, and Pak Dewa. Also, greetings to the attending scholars. I will now present my, let me share my screen. All right. So, I will present my work. This is part of my undergraduate thesis titled District Level Income Convergence Analysis Across Java during 2011-2019 with a Spatial Econometrics approach. Also, before I start, I am aware that you might come specifically for this presentation after looking at the extended abstract, but I will tell you that I have found some mistakes on the data. I have made a fix on it, and there is some changes in the result, but the objective of the studies won't change that much. That is to extend the beta convergence study by applying conditional convergence specification to see the trend of regular income convergence during the period of observation from 2011 to 2019, and arguing for the application for conditional convergence specification. Also arguing for the application of spatial econometrics in the convergence studies. And also, by applying conditional convergence, we can get more insights on nature and pattern of economic interactions between districts in Java. I am aware that some of us might not be familiar with the studies on convergence, so let me introduce to you a little bit. Inequality has been a problem, especially in developing economies like Indonesia. And there are numerous convergence studies, but there are limited numbers of studies using conditional convergence. There is studies using conditional convergence but not spatial methods, and there are some using spatial methods but not conditional convergence. Here are the distinction between the absolute convergence, which arises from the ideas proposed by Abramovich, 1986, if I'm not mistaken. The idea is that the regions with which is further left behind can adopt easily technological progress from the more advanced economies easily, rather than expanding in their own technological frontier with through their own research. So in simple terms, the further left behind a region is they can enjoy a higher potential growth. But I want to emphasize that in Abramovich's work, it is also said that their ability to enjoy such potential is depends on their institutional capacity to absorb the potential, which brings us to the conditional specification, which includes the regional characteristics, institutional characteristics as well. Okay, this is the rationale for the studies. Previous studies use conditional convergence but not spatial. For example, by Professor Sosdarmo and Vidyatama, 2006, and Garcia-Ningsih, 1998. And the more recent ones by Professor Vidyatama, by Dr. Vidyatama, using absolute conditional specification. The problem is, with the absolute convergence, we might have insufficient control, which may lead to possible misspecification. The problems with traditional econometrics in convergence analysis is that previous studies, namely by Ray and Montori 1999, states that such specification without spatial methods might have inference statistic problem caused by the cross-sectional dependence, or in more technical terms, the spatial dependence. The research strategy that I applied to the study is that the application of spatial econometrics model, namely the spatial Durbin error model, the comparison between absolute and conditional model, and the comparison between non-spatial and spatial. Okay, here are the drawbacks of previous studies. Okay, these studies found give support to the that the absolute convergence might not be enough. We might have to control additional regional characteristics, such which presented by the stated by Rodriguez Pose, that it's not determined by initial level of development alone, but also determined by who can maintain their comparative advantage. Also by Lesage and Fisher, who said that long-run steady state is determined by the characteristics of own and neighboring regions, characteristics of own and neighboring regions. Fingleton and Lopez Basso, who are arguing for spatial spillovers to be specified as substantive, meaning that the spillover is controlled through spatially augmented independent variable rather than just left out in the spatial error term. Another empirical evidence by Henley found difference in result between absolute and conditional specification. With in his case in Britain, he only found significance in the conditional specification. Here are drawbacks of convergence studies using traditional econometrics. Found evidence of cross-sectional dependence, as I said earlier, caused bias estimate of parameters variance. This has been supported by replication in the same manner in German case by Niebuhr in 2001. Now, studies in Indonesian context, we want to see what we have to pay attention to when we are doing study in Indonesian context. First of all, natural resource story. Since the previous studies, especially the older ones, found evidence of natural resource endowment story, such as by Esmara, 1975, which found that timber and oil is it has a determining role in a convergence process. But more recently, by Akita, Kurniawan, and Miyata, found that the natural resource story is becoming more irrelevant since there is declining share throughout time. Also, in recent case, there are variation in growth performance of resource-rich regions. So it is not the same as the oil boom era in 1970s, 1980s. And in Java case, there is increasing role of secondary and tertiary sectors, which means primary sectors like the mining and the agricultural has declining share in recent times in Java economy. Also, convergent trends depends on series use, as we have discussed earlier about the natural resource story. That mining might have a big contribution to the process of convergence. So, in the work by Professor Hill, Professor Sosdarmo, and Vidyatama 2008, with my in GRDP with mining sectors, they found high inequality but converging trend. But when the mining sectors is left out, there are moderate inequalities and no clear evidence of convergence or divergence trend. With the aggregation problem, most of the convergence studies done earlier is done in province level, which, as found by Akita and Ali Shahbana, disguises the severity in district level. So there is their study indicates the increasing role of within region inequality. The data I'm going to use is retrieved from the publicly available data provided by district level BPS offices. 1,017 observations covering 113 districts with some omitted. I will have to say it now. That is the Kepulauan Seribu and the 4 districts of Madura. Since the spatial methods is still debatable how to represent the interaction between these districts that is divided by the sea, because logically there is some difference in effort and cost when you're trying to traverse a certain amount of distance over land and over seas, and that is why for some time now, for the time being, we will omit it. We omit the 5 districts. And we will also cover 2011 up to 2019 period, which amounts to 9 years. And I have to say that we do value imputation for 2016 for labor figures in all districts, and for 2013 in Kota Bandung. So the problem is, since I have to use the publicly available data, probably some of us know that BPS won't publish it if the data has relative standard error issues. So apparently in 2016 their survey was not designed to represent district level figures. So yeah, we have to impute it through mean impute value. We will first do the diagnostics. We'll have to check the spatial correlation. This summary will come later to the more detailed figures. With Moran's eye, global spatial autocorrelation, we found slight evidence of spatial autocorrelations, meaning that for some years we do the Moran's eye test. We found evidence of spatial autocorrelations in some years, not in all. And the LM test, spatial autocorrelation, mostly in form of spatial lag. Since we are doing it in panel setting, we will do also this Baltagi-Songkoh test. I will explain the test shortly in a brief manner. That in the textbook by Anselin, it is said that the spatial autocorrelation and the heteroscedasticity, the test for both can be affected. The test for spatial autocorrelation can be affected in presence of heteroscedasticity and vice versa. This test, this Baltagi-Songkoh test, is devised to solve that problem. So we will now use that for the panel setting. We found no spatial autocorrelation, but there is random regional effect, which is a special case of heteroscedasticity. This is our this is for the mining series. This is the Moran's eye, which what we find in 2011. Some of it in lag. The spatial correlation is in lag form, and this is for non-mining. We found it slightly stronger evidence of spatial autocorrelation, and also in form lag. This is the Baltagi-Songkoh test. We found this is the joint test for both spatial autocorrelation and heteroscedasticity. We solved the heteroscedasticity problem by using the spatial FGLS, which is more robust in presence of heteroscedasticity. So this is our spatial model specification. We control the regional characteristics. We base the model on the solo growth model. So the X is a factor of regional characteristics, namely the labor force growth, the human capital stock, represented by the share of labor force who attain tertiary education, and also the gross fixed capital formation for the physical capital. We will also use spatial lag for the independent variable and the error term. So here are the results. First of all, at the first glance, we found no clear evidence of converging or diverging trend, but there is some points that I would like to highlight. First of all, we found that the independent variables from the conditional specification has a significant contribution to the growth process. There's physical capital, there's human capital, and also the growth of labor force, which is we found a very normal, in line with this solo growth theory. I suspect that the absolute specification might be misspecified, given that we found that these controlling variables are actually significant. So yeah, we know the problem of zero conditional mean. And another one is in the non-mining series. We see that the spatial, do I have access to? Oh, I will just point out. In the second row, fourth column, is the conditional specification for non-mining series, which is significant and in positive term. So this earlier studies in Chinese case mentioned that this result may indicate there is polarizing effect. That is that regions of clusters of regions with high income might benefit from additional growth boost. So yeah, there can be polarization that clusters of regions with high income can have even higher incomes, and clusters of low income regions does not benefit from any special spillover at all. The second is the do I have to spotlight. Okay. Okay. So in the fourth column, for the spatially lack human capital does have significant coefficient with a negative sign. In the same case which I referred earlier, in the Chinese case, it refers that this might indicate the competition effect. So a region with higher growth competes for a skilled labor. So yeah, there's some kind of backwash effect if we refer to Merdal. Yeah, this results indicates such interaction might exist between districts in Java. Next one, we will compare the spatial and non-spatial ones. So there is this different results between the non-spatial and spatial mining. The different result, owing to the literature review which we have seen earlier, I can only suspect that without controlling the spatial interaction, there might be a parameter variance bias, which we see here, that the analysis with mining series has different result. In the non-spatial ones, we can see that there is a clear convergence with a strong evidence of convergence, while when we analyze it with spatial methods, we didn't find any. Also, there's difference in the independent variables, which I suspect suffering from the parameter variance bias. So, summarizing the results, we have not found any trend of convergence in Java during the period of observation. We find no difference between series with and without mining sectors. Possible explanation is owing to the finding by Ali Shaban and Akita, that is the decreasing role of the primary sectors in Java recently. And the absolute specification is suspected to be misspecified given the significance of control variables. Non-spatial and spatial models yield different results, might be caused by uncontrolled spatial interaction, and this is the polarization effect, which I have said earlier. Also, the competition effect. The takeaways is that this study gives supporting evidence of decreasing role of natural resource in domain story, especially in the case of Java. As we stated earlier in our objective, that is to argue for the conditional specification model, we found that absolute model might be misspecified, and reinforcing the case for taking into account spatial interaction. Also, given that the polarization effect and the competition effect, we provide additional insights on the economic interaction between districts in Java. And yes, I do expect a lot of feedbacks from this presentation. This is still have a lot of drawbacks, and I do expect question, critic, suggestions, or anything. If you would like to give it outside of the forum, please do reach me through the email. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Immanuel. That's really interesting and very good work. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We have about 10 minutes, but let me use my privilege first. So basically, when you say traditional convergence analysis, that only refers to those studies that compare absolute and conditional convergence. Is that right? But no spatial treatment.
Yes, true. The
Okay,
traditional
right.
refers, yeah.
Okay, and also we can say that your main contribution in this study is to apply spatial econometrics to growth model, whether absolute and convergent. Well, it's quite established already that conditional convergence can tell more stories than absolute convergence, but then you apply spatial econometrics again on this. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's have Pak Budi.
Thank you, Immanuel. A very good work, very clear presentation. It is a promising work. So I have to the first one on. I do not argue your debate on absolute and a conditional, but for Samba, so the issue is more like the way that I understand is that the issue is that if you just care about reducing inequality and you just want to observe whether the inequality is reduced or not, you certainly just care about absolutes. Now the conditional is you would like to explain more how the convergence is happening. However, one of the problem with the conditional, many model developing conditional, is this endogeneity problem. So that's why in early 2000, a lot of people using GMM to solve those things because it's just too difficult to find an instrument. So however, and also that is one of the reasons why this growth model empirically in a way declining. So one thing to refresh those modeling is, it seemed to me that you do not want to put too many conditional, but something that you could sure it is exogenous. So you just let everything else in the error term, then just focus on one aspect, one conditional aspect. So that probably a way to go. Now on the issue of spatial, And this has been, of course, friends in regional science keep pushing this spatial. But the early interpretation on the spatial is that you share some endowment with your neighbor, so then your neighbor performance influencing you. However, then it's actually, the debate is actually become bigger. The most important one is information. Now, given the digital era, the question is that which one is actually your neighbor in terms of you sharing your information. So my guess is that what happened in your result in Java, in which it is a rather small and crowded district, it is not clear anymore when you would like to define your neighbor. So that could be, one of the reasons that your spatial model, it seems to me, it's not that convincing.
Can controlling one variable like internet penetration address that issue of non-physical neighbor, Mas Budi?
So the way that you could, so for example, if we know that, basically every district in Java should treat Jakarta as their neighbor, basically.
Right.
Because so in their spatial matrix W, everybody is actually Jakarta neighbor, basically, in Java.
Right.
That's yeah.
Okay, thanks. Back to you, Immanuel.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Budi, for the feedbacks. Yes, so I will first address the first input on the model about the extragenerity and not too much control, and that is why I stick to the basic solo growth model, because it is quite simple, and apart from the fact that it's quite hard to find publicly available data in district level. Yes, I do aware that there might be exogeneity, but yeah, and I would like to just stick to the theory, and actually yes, I haven't really thinking about solving the endogeneity outside of the protection of the theory itself. And yes, this information I haven't tell in the presentation session, that I use the contiguity matrix. So I resort to the most basic kind of interaction between districts, that is just like a short range trade. I do aware of the possibility that every district in Java or every district in Indonesia is in some way related to Jakarta. I think in my case, I can try to apply the inverse distance matrix which is able to connect all the districts with Jakarta in regard to their distance to Jakarta. And yes, I think that is very valuable feedback, Pak Budi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Immanuel. Another question, maybe? No? Also, if I may use the time, Immanuel, in 1997, there is a scriptsy in UI actually did this exactly regional income convergence analysis, also using solo growth model and everything, but that scriptsy didn't do spatial econometrics. I know this worked because the name is Arianto Patundru. It's 97 scriptsy FEB UI. So, but thank you. This reminds me of my past work. Rus'an, I saw you raising your hand. Rus'an? Oh, no? Is there any other question?
Oh.
Hari Aginta. Pak Hari, silakan. Go ahead, Pak.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Satya, for the time. Thank you, Immanuel, for your great presentation and work. It's quite surprising to me that we cannot see absolute convergence within Java districts, because I thought that Java districts are somehow similar, then we don't have to control any variables to see convergence. But yeah, there is no convergence. Maybe we can also try to go with the other type of convergence, the other flavor of convergence, which is introduced by Philip and Sue, club convergence. And then you can also try to incorporate the role of space there when you evaluate the determinants of the club convergence formation. So you can use the spatial lack of any control variables to see whether space really matters in forming the club convergence within Java districts. But yeah, this is just small suggestion that you can think of, because we don't see convergence. Maybe we can recover convergence, but not on average, but within some subsamples. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you, Pak Anggi. Immanuel, 1 minute to respond to that.
Sure. Yes, I am very familiar with the works of fellow scholars who work on the convergence, one of which we heard earlier, Pak Hari Aginta, who did the club convergence. But yes, that's a very valuable input that I have to try to look at the convergence problem with various approach, including the club convergence approach, which I still have much to learn. Yes, but thank you very much for Pak Hari Aginta, and thank you for the chance, Pacho.
Yeah, thank
I'll
you.
give it back to you.
It's a fascinating work, Immanuel. So
you.
congratulations, and thank you very much for Pak Budi and Pak Hari also for participation. So let's move to the third paper. So the third paper is, let me see pre-COVID-19 food price and household food insecurity nexus and its implication for the current pandemic in developing country, evidence from Indonesia. It sounds really promising work. So this is by Muhammad Anwar and Rus'an Nasrudin from Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Indonesia. So I think Pak Rus'an is here also, and Pak Anwar, is Pak Anwar here? Pak Anwar,
Yes,
are you going to present this? Okay,
yes.
over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for the chance that's given to me. It's very great to present my research with my supervisors' research. Would you please me to be a co-host so I can share my screen? Okay. So the paper that I want to present here entitled with pre-COVID-19 food price and household food insecurity nexus and its implication for the current pandemic in the developing country, evidence from Indonesia. This paper outlines comprises of motivations, context, empirical strategy, result, and conclusion. Let's move to the motivations. The coronavirus disease 2019 outbreak has been signaling risk to the global food insecurity. This is also associated with economic fallout, food production decline, and supply chain disruption due to efforts to limit the spread of the infection, including the social distancing, containment measures, and export restriction. On the other side, policymakers have been considering various measures on the demand side. One of the policies for mitigating the decline of economic access of food is cash transfer, and also social cash transfer in the community. As we know that its most prominent impact of the pandemic has been through income decline. However, the adverse dimension of food insecurity due to pandemic is not only on the economic access represented by income decline, but also potential supply or availability disruptions, which in turn affecting the food price level. Hadley et al. Shows that the food price has been increasing over time and signaling the crisis and food insecurity of the world's poor. As we know in Macroeconomics 101, that increasing food price would create an adverse real income effect, and it's leading to the rising food price, make decrease the demand for food, especially for households with limited income. Concerning food insecurity, one of the policy dilemmas for the current pandemic is whether authorities need to implement a tougher social mobility restriction or not. Significant supply side interruption by such action could lead to price hike and become a real threat for physical accessibility of food. As for both policymakers about containment policy implication and household food insecurity, there are two important pieces of quantitative information in effects. The first is the effect of the containment policy to the price, and the second effect is the effect of the price to the food insecurity. While the empirical evidence about the first effect is available at this time, we need to try to address the second effect where the estimates on the latter part of the information is limited. Therefore, this research aims to fill the gaps by investigating the prospective effect of food price spike to experiencing food insecurity due to current pandemic. Context. Since the coronavirus disease 2019 outbreak had been penetrated Indonesia in March 2020, the pandemic has been creating adverse shocks on demand and supply side at the aggregate and micro level. At the same time, Indonesia experienced the economic fallout, which is marked wide by the negative economic growth on the second quarter. We have the minus 5.32%, and the third quarter we have the minus 3.49% magnitude of year-on-year best. And based on the recent labor force survey, as we know in Sakernas, there existed for about 40% over the 200 million population working, suffering for the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia. If we look at the data released by the BPS Statistics Indonesia on CPI, Consumer Price Index, we have the window of time 2017 and 2019. On the red line, we have the food CPI, and on the blue line, we have the CPI in general. We know that we have the continuously increasing of the CPI over the window of time from 27 and until the 2019. And of course, this increasing measure would leading to food insecurity. Let's move on to the data released by Statistics Indonesia on percentage of prevalence of moderate and severe VS. In 2017, we have the 8.66% of the population suffer from moderate and severe VS. And 2018, we have 6.86%. And on my calculation, we have 3.42% in 2019. Based on this data, we have the fact that the VS Indonesia is decreases by the time. Empirical strategy. The data used in this research are coming from non-final survey social economy national, also SENAS, conducted in 2017 and 2019. And the food price used here is based on the seasonal model, on consumption model, by consolidating the 20 food commodities which frequently and mostly consumed over the provinces in Indonesia. Here is the formula where the food price is obtained from the summarize of the 20 food commodities with the price of the commodities and it's weighted by the associated share of the expenditure in the regional level. Here is the list of the commodities used in this research, rice until the beef. And what we aim to highlight here is that the share of the rice in Indonesia is about 12%, which is the prominent among the 20 others. Okay, let's move to the concept of the food insecurity. As proposed by Amartya Sen in 1981, that the food security only addressed about the availability of the food, but in 1996, the dimension added to the availability on food security, the dimension of access and utilization of the food itself added to complete food security. And in 2013, under the project of Voice of Hunger Frau, The dimension of anxiety completes the food insecurity definition to be food insecurity experience scale, as the worry of the food is added to the concept. As in practitioner, not at all measure the food insecurity by using an experience tool, namely food insecurity experience scale, which relies on 8 dichotomous questions. And these questions is ranging from worrying about running out of food until the experiencing hunger. And how we measure the food insecurity, might try and reuse categorization using the cuts of a tree, the point of 3, 5, and 7 through the row score of the phase itself, where we know that row score under 3 would be categorized as high food secure, and 3 to 5 would be categorized as marginally food secure. 5 to 7 would be categorized as moderate food secure, and over the 7 would be categorized severely food insecure. Here is the food insecurity experience household references module in Susanas in English version, but in Susanas is used in Indonesian versions. Here's the estimating equation. We have two estimating equation on household level regression and regional level regression. On the first household level regression, we use the outcome of VS by raw score and RAS scale, which will be evaluated on food price and the set of control variables on household level, and also the dummy of year and island dummies. And regional level regression needed to address the indigeneity in the model of the first estimating equation, where the time invariant variables will be controlled using this regional level regression, where the outcome variable of severe VS would be the percentage of household VS raw score in regional, in such regional and at time t, and the food price would be measured on the regional price too, and the set of control variables at the regional price like GRDP and the percentage of household with rice skin and some other social variables. And also we have the island dummies to limit the heterogeneity bias by geographical factors. Here's the result. First, I would like to show you the statistical description of the variables in here. We divide into household level and regional level. What we need to make sure in this description is that like a raw score is ranging from 0 to 8. It contains that the minimum value of the raw score is 0 and the maximum value of the raw scores is 8 based on the food insecurity that consists of 8 questions. On the regional level, we need to make sure that severe VS prevalence is ranging from the good interval from 0 to 0.69%, and also for the bottom 14. Here is the histogram of the rise score of VS in Indonesia from 2017 to 2019. What we need to highlight here that most of the household in Indonesia do not suffer from food insecurity. It marks by the 0 score of the household in response of the food insecurity module. We have here that the household prominently answer the food insecurity experience scale module to 0 of the rise score, and the rest is low. And the second paragraph is the scatter plot of the rise score against the rise scale, where the rise scale used to correct the rise score. What we need to what a takeaway information we have here is that the zero that we have in the left graph is corrected to be non-zero on the RAS scale. And also on the raw score of 8, it's corrected to be at the maximum of 4.55. Okay, here is the empirical regional food price variations. As we know together that we have the Indonesia have the variation of the food price among the Indonesian archipelago. Based on this graph, that we know that the high prices is existing
Sorry,
in
Anwar,
Papua.
is this average price or for particular commodity?
Food price was consolidating the 20 food commodities.
20, okay.
Yeah. We have here that the price spike happened in West Kalimantan and in Papua, and also in the remote island and landlocked island in Indonesia. So what we have in Southeast Indonesia that may explain this heterogeneity, that the difference of the price, the difference of the margin and trade transport would explain this differentiation of the food price. Okay, here is the main estimate of the household level. We have the value of the coefficient estimates on the log food price on raw score is about 0.398, and it shifts to the coefficient estimates to be lower than a raw score when we implement the outcome variables to be a right scale. It's about a quarter of the vast measures. And as we decompose the commodities into rice and non-rice, we have the impact here is a little bit higher than the overall commodities. we have the shift also from the raw score coefficient to the right scale as a consequences of using a corrected measure of the right scale. And then to the panel B at the regional level, we have the same result where the coefficient estimate for the low food price on RAS scale on the proportion of household with severe food insecurity is significant, and it is evaluated at the mean value of the scores. This number translate into range between 0.1% to 0.6% of the effects for every 1% rise in food price. And it's interesting to address the subsample of the bottom 40% of the population to confirm that the effect is higher or not at the bottom 40% of populations. Here we have the coefficient estimate is higher compared to the first regression. At the first regression, we have 0.108, and here we have the 0.155. It confirms that the effect on the bottom 40% population is higher compared to the overall population. At the composite commodities, still the same with the first regression, it confirms that the non-rice price effect is higher compared to the rice price. Here is the heterogeneous effect evaluated by rural and urban area. Oh no, by rural and urban area. We confirm that the effect of the food price is also positive. It is indicated that the rise of the price would lead to the rise of the food insecurity itself to the household living in the urban or rural area. As we compare to the urban and rural, we have the effect is higher in rural compared to the urban. And also red area and non-red area, divided by red area is the Java Island, consists of the high incidence of the COVID-19 infections. We have we have a comparison of the coefficient estimate is still higher on the non-red area. It's very, very diverse. The result is very, very diverse. And also, as we see the composite commodities, we have the result of the consistent from the previous result. We have the non-rise price effect is still higher. And as we compare to the urban and rural, the impact from the rural compared to the urban area is still higher also. And this negative, in this negative coefficient, convinces that maybe some household in Indonesia take some, have been taking some profitable amid the rising of the food. And here is the heterogeneous effect evaluated by the island in Indonesia. There are 8 big islands or landlocked island in Indonesia, from Sumatra until Papua. We have the highest effect on Bali, with the coefficient impact is 0.702, compared to the Papua is only 0.086. And in Java is only about this. As we decompose the commodities, we have a consistent result that the non-rice price is still higher compared to the rice price. In conclusion, the first is the pre-COVID-19 price sensitivity on food insecurity is marginally sizable, and it translates into an alarming potential adverse price effect in the COVID-19 period. And the second conclusion is at the mean value estimation for every 1% rise in food price, the effect range existed between 0.1 to 0.6% to increase of the RAS and the rise score of households experiencing food insecurity. And the conclusion is the rise in non-rice price escalates the effect on the food insecurity measure about 10 times of the rising rice price on full sample selections. And the fourth conclusion is that by geography, there existed a heterogeneous effect and a valid across nations, across islands and subpopulation in the archipelago context, which is worth important to such policymakers, as we see that Bali have the effect is higher among the others. Okay, thank you so much for giving me the chance to present my presentations. And over to you, Pak Ajo.
Thank you so much, Anwar. That's very good, very nice presentation. So let us open 10 minutes for 10 minutes for question and answers. I don't see any hands raised. So let me ask the first question, Anwar. I see the topic is, well, the title of your paper is pre-COVID-19 food prices, blah, 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 and then implication for the current pandemic, right? But you didn't force enough in your presentation. I haven't read the paper, of course, how you would actually use your observations before the pandemic hit, i.e. the price, commodity, food prices before the COVID, and then use this as a basis to estimate, or at least to guess what's going to happen during these COVID years, right? So for example, if you have some kind of elasticity there, like if the price goes up by 1%, what's going to happen to the food insecurity? And given that food prices are going to rise this much percent during the COVID years, that means we're going to expect an increase in food insecurity by this much. Or if it is not really clear for the audience or for the reader, you can maybe, you know, transfer this measure of food insecurity to some kind of easier to grasp definition, like poverty, for example. So every X% increase in food price is going to, well, was going, because it is past observation, to increase poverty by this much. And then you extrapolate this to what is happening now during the COVID years. You see what I'm saying? Is that, or is that actually part of your paper?
Yeah, it's been written in the paper, but as the time is very limited, so I can't explain the details of the this introduction paper. As we've written in the paper, we use the rapid framework as applied by Friedman and Levinson in 2002, if I'm not wrong. So that we are trying to guess what happened to the food insecurity of the household if such pandemic happened by using the channeling of the price hike.
Right.
And the result of the I presented a few minutes ago that it's it's a conjecture. A conjecture of the price hike to the food insecurity prevalence.
Okay, thanks. Pak Rus'an, you wanna add something?
Maybe just to elaborate more on answering your question, Pak Jo. So the concern, the most obvious concern would be whether the post-COVID relationship of the price and food security might be changed much. And yeah, that's one of the caveat that we need to carefully hold when make the assumption, especially when the epicentrum now is concentrated to urban areas. That's why we try to disaggregate or do the heterogeneous analysis by such region to see the upper and lower bound, in which later on the structure might be differ, in which the upper bound might be best guessed by the concentrated cases area. And secondly, for using the information, we also need how much is the impact of the pandemic on the price level itself. And yeah, we are working on doing spread analysis on that. Not done yet for another work, so that we can combine the two. And yeah, try to put them together and to finally say what we got from this COVID toward the increase of food security, food insecurity recently. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Rus'an. Any other question or comments? No. What is the latest Susanas available, Pak Rus'an?
It should be 2020, and we have the what is September and the March edition. But correct me if I'm wrong, Anwar. The question on food security is available only for March.
Yes.
Not for September.
No.
Right.
That's the waiting time. If we want to get estimate for the post-COVID, we need to wait until the next 2021 March edition.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If there is no more questions, one more chance for questions. No. If not, well, thank you so much, Pak Anwar, Pak Rus'an, for very nice work, very nice presentation. I hope that you can, turn this into very informative, interesting paper and to submit it somewhere. Great. Then let us now move to the last but not least paper in this session, and that is the natural disasters impact on village development, study on utilization of village funds for disaster mitigation activities. And the presenters are Udin Suhaini from BPS or Statistics Indonesia, and I Dewa Gede Karma Wisana, Pak Dewa from Universitas Indonesia. So I assume Pak Udin will start the presentation. Silakan Pak Udin.
Thank you, Pak Anjo and Pak Yusuf. Thank you very much for this wonderful experience for me. In this moment, I will show you a very important disaster event and defense by optimum mitigation happened in the village after village fund. Okay, let me introduce myself. My name is Udin Suhaini. Let I share screen first. My name is Udin Suhaini, and my supervisor, Pak Gede Karma Wisana, Idewa Gede Karma Wisana. We will present our research, natural disaster impact on village development, study of utilization of village fund for disaster mitigation activities. Okay. Okay, the motivation of this research is what disaster issues and the framework 2015 until 2030.
Pak Udin, maaf Pak, can you make it full display on your screen? So
okay,
we see it bigger.
How is this?
Yeah, that's better. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. The motivation of this research about what disaster issue, the framework 2015 until 2030, and Indonesia achieving SDGs 2 to 2030 agenda. And to success this agenda, we using village fund for mitigation activities. This issue was triggered by a potential impact of disaster at the short term is loss of life, destruction of infrastructure, ecological damage, infrastructure of disruption of economic access, limiting social network. Besides the short-term damage, in the long term, it has variety impact. Improve infrastructure and agriculture protection in developed countries, while for developing and poor countries actually increase debt. In Indonesian villages, disaster impact on damage to infrastructure and loss of life, exodus population, uninhabitable villages. However, in some villages have better quality infrastructure after this disaster. So what can we learn from the previous research? The impact of disaster is investigated in several conditions: short-term, long-term, micro or macro, and mitigative input for village development in Indonesia have been investigated in local context. In fact, the policy on the use of village fund is comprehensive for all of Indonesia villages. Village development in disaster-prone area needs to input productive input and mitigative input, which can be financed by village funds. Meanwhile, there are disaster-affected villages that do not provide mitigative input with village fund because need to commitment from the village government to provide mitigative input. We believe that mitigative input can substitute for contracted development productivity during the disaster. However, we also do not deny that there are other mitigation apart from village fund. Our question is, can mitigated input with village fund substitute for productive input for village development? How optimal is it? In this study, we will show you in the stage to get the result. We carry out an impact evaluation analysis with the ID regression by testing the village fund mitigation input as village government policy that was rolled out in 2015 until 2017. We made observation to get the interesting finding on the data related to the village development between 2014 until 2018. 2014 before village fund and 2018 after village fund. Here have some challenge. We have exogenous disaster, but we cannot control the magnitude. So, for assume the magnitude is same at the disaster. And then we need homogeneity in initial endowment. All of the sample village must have the starting point at the same. And then we found the conditional parallel trend. This is what we used to solve. We must solve it before we get impact evaluation result. The exogenous variable, we think the empirical model. And how about the other challenge? The homogeneity of initial endowment. We finish up with strictly selected the sample of villages. This stage we have any strict selected sample village in 2014. We sorting out disaster affected village, and then the village does not have mitigation facilities to get the same initial endowment. So we just use the village affected by disaster, and this sample we split out with two conditions. Village has utilized with village fund and not utilized with village fund, and then village have do not have any mitigation facilities. We split out with two conditions: had utilized with village fund and was affected by disaster. And the third level, we selected treatment and control village. The treatment group, and there are mitigation with village fund from 2015 until 2017. And the control group, there are no mitigation activities at the village with village fund from 2015 until 2017. Our problem over here, it's not same village. So our treatment village is 1,022 village selected, and in the control we make it same 1,022 village with the same condition. This is homogeneous at the development. And the village did not have experienced any regional change from 2014 until 2018. No, the village is not split at the year what we see. So the parallel trend, we was taking variable and adding at the empirical model. And next, our empirical model, we use referring to direct estimation, the empirical model in this study use just production function with the logarithmic model following two equations. Function K figuring the production and function Y figuring the development with two input, productive function K and mitigative input mitigative. Then function K substitute in function Y, resulting in the following empirical model equation is function of natural logarithm by Y divided by G. Next, we adding the exogenous at the empirical model. There are number of disaster at the village, and the dummy variable mitigation other beside the village fund. Our first challenge is done, but what data set what can we use? Our data set to proxy, we can use the village development outcome is the form of infrastructure development result. In Indonesia, use village development index. It used by PGMN 2015 until 2019, and in material input is proxied from area of the village. We use this because where the wider area, there are more material resources that can be used to build the village. Meanwhile, land as the determining asset effective in reducing the negative impact of various type of disaster. And then our library input is proxied from the number of family. We assume that there is at least one family member who participate in the village development mutual assistance. We call it gotong royong. The change is not affected by wages, but by migration. And then our mitigation input is fiscal expenditure from village fund used for disaster mitigation. We process it came from 2018 village potential data. And number of disaster and damage mitigation process came from village potential data in 2018 too. Now, it's time to look the interesting result of this study. If this chapter, we can see in the figure of disaster-prone villages. Villages affected by disaster are evenly distributed in all provinces in Indonesia. We can see all of red one, Aceh and Papua. There are villages that have experienced more than one disaster, even more than 10 disasters. So to our village is to high disaster over there. The sample of this study is evenly distributed through the province too. We can see in the blue one, the green one, and the treatment, and yellow one at the control. Do disaster facility? Do the disaster affected villages yet have mitigation facilities? Let's see. The existence of mitigation facilities at the village is not sustainable. Why? This is our question too. Is the mitigation in the village ineffective? Has the other party tried to mitigation effective? How it can be? Let's look. The existence of mitigation facilities in the village is quite dynamic. The turnover shown that the mitigation facilities in the village are not sustainable. Besides that, mitigation development with village fund just 2.77% of the total 138,000 activities, and the mitigation of empowerment with the village fund just 3.2% of the total 588 empowerment activities 2015 until 2017. So what impact a disaster for village fund is the mitigation with village fund is ineffective? We can see at this chapter, at the highest point of the project, our result is we confirm that the disaster effect have negative impact and mitigation have a positive impact. We can see in the beta 5 natural disaster have a negative impact on village development. Beta 1 the mitigation input with village fund have positive impact and the village development. Beta 6 mitigation input without village fund have a positive impact too, and beta 2 mitigative input is diminishing. Before we explain the result, we have confirmed this result with several stages of evaluation. The first stage, we ensure that the empirical model requirement have been met. Mitigative input are concave and diminishing. We also consider the effect of multicollinearity on parameter estimation with using high order term, and then we carry out a robustness check in several states, distinguishing the status of rural areas, regional typology, coastal slope, forest, and large island in Indonesia, Sumatra, and Papua. And finally, these results are robust and have met the requirement of the empirical model we need. And now this is our result. The highest point of the prediction output is 5.978 has following the several conditions. Number of value of village development index is 70.88. This is a developing village. And then the number of village development activities 2015 until 2017 was 83 activities, which number of development activities with mitigation is without mitigation is 55, and mitigation was 2 activities. Other activities were government administration and coaching. The village area is 3 kilometers square, and the number of family is 3.264 families. the proportion of mitigative input to the number of activities from this village fund is 2.4%. And once result is the mitigation input is inelastic. They are 0.874%. 0.874. What's next? We also get the any figure. This captures substitute mitigative input to productive input, and then we have some point over here. Mitigation input have a positive impact on village development, and diminishing. Mitigative input can only partially substitute. And then the village that only have mitigative input with village fund have deeper outcome expectation. And the last one is village that have offer other mitigation other than village fund have higher expected outcome value. So let's discuss. This finding confirm previous research. Disaster have an impact on decreasing village development outcome by 2.1%. Mitigation input with village fund have a positive impact of 95%, 95.3%, and they are diminishing by 0.6%. This finding leads us to another interesting finding. The first one, mitigative input from village fund are less elastic, which means they cannot completely substitute productive input. The optimum mitigation input with village fund is 2.4% of the total village development activities with village fund. This means the allocation of mitigation input needs to be efficient, and the village can adapt to disaster by building better quality infrastructure post-disaster without village fund too. And then there was another impact beyond the comparison between the treatment group and control group. Why? Some villages that have other mitigation facilities beside village fund. We found that the village that have other mitigation facilities other than village fund, the expected outcome of village development is negative 0.104%, while villages that only have mitigation from village fund have a much lower expected outcome of minus 5.559%. The village with other mitigation is good enough rather than village that only have mitigation from the village fund. So mitigation with village fund still needed for village development, even this is not enough. What we can conclude. The disaster have negative impact on village development, and mitigation with village fund has a positive and significant impact on village development in disaster affected villages. Unfortunately, mitigation with village fund is not enough to substitute for the productivity of village development. The optimal input for mitigation of village fund is only 2.4% of activities from total activities with village fund. If it is more than that, it has the potential to reduce outcome by 0.6%. Thank you very much for the great attention. All those we have shared be beneficial for us. Time for me to return to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mas Udin. Very nice work. Let's see if we have questions. Oh, welcome, Pak Dewa. Okay, is there anyone asking question? No. Okay, let me give my first comment, Pak Udin, if I may. You seem to have lots and lots of information in your paper and figures, numbers. And I think when it comes to paper, you would want to make it more clear as to what you are really trying to investigate, right? And then not too distracted by too many numbers, so we can see clearly what is the objective really, right? So now on the title, it says natural disasters impact on village development, study of utilization of village funds, and so forth. So when people read this title, they might think about, you know, the mechanism by which village funds affect the development, right? The development in the village. But in the presentation, it seems like you want to measure the impact of natural disasters on village development, which is you find there is an impact, and it is not surprising, of course, right? So that those are the things that you would want to clarify maybe in the paper, right? Probably it's already there because I haven't read the paper. But let's have the first question from Pak Rus'an.
Thank you, Pak Cho, and thank you for a very nice presentation, Masudin, and as well as Pak Dewa. I just have two things. One is comment. One is maybe clarification question. This is very interesting and promising topic. In the sense that you are utilizing exogenous event, disaster. But my curiosity was, why don't you also consider the event itself as the primary move for the estimation? I mean, most of the technique will use this disaster as the instrument, for example, toward the mediator of what kind of policy or mitigation or any effort to reduce the destructive effect to the outcome. That's my first comment. Secondly, in the current estimation, I maybe lost some point in detailing how the selectivity issue is handled in terms of the two groups. I mean, how was the characteristic of those villages who actually endowed with a past experience of a disaster could actually draw different capability in making the mitigation capacity, etc. So could you redraw again on that point? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rus'an. Udin or Dewa?
Yeah.
Udin.
Thank you, Pak Ajo. Yes, we have to point over here.
I can see you have a lot of works already. So, but that's good, right? But you want to, you know, maybe this can be like 2 or 3 papers because you have done a lot of work. Don't put it all in one paper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Told you, Din. Told you. Pak Aco and I did not have any contact before, yeah.
Thank you. I will make a note and I will maybe split it what we need right now, and I will explore in the next paper, I think. And then Pak Dan, thank you very much for this confirmation. Yeah, at the mediator of the disaster, what we will show, what we need to show over here is the mitigation with village fund. So I try to figuring out the mitigation with village fund, if it is can be effective or not. Even the village just have the village fund or other mitigation without village fund. And our result is the mitigation with village fund is not enough, even they're positive and significant. And then at the some point with groups, these two groups, we make it clearly before Village Fund at the 2014, we select the village have not any mitigation facilities at the 2014. Just we see the 2049 villages, they have no mitigation facilities at the 2014. This village, what we started. After that, we checked at the 2015, 16, and 17. We checked the village have mitigation activities with Village Fund, and village have no mitigation activities with the Village Fund. So
sorry to cut you there, Udin. When you say mitigation activities, what kind of mitigation activities there in the field that you observe?
Okay, yeah, this is activities with the Village Fund. What we can at the village level,
Right.
we call it early warning system. They have it, safety equipment, for example, boot, tent, or mask, and disaster sign.
And sorry again, and you have information if these facilities are developed using village funds or not.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We have the information with the POTES 2018 have any information of there.
Okay, cool.
After we checked 2015 until 2018, we selected that village have the mitigation activities with Village Fund. We selected as treatment village. So over here we have 1,442 villages with the Village Fund activities mitigation, and our challenge is how we make control treatment. The control treatment, we must find the 140 to for 1,422. So we select the treatment is randomized, but we check the homogeneity with the treatment. What we check the homogeneity? We use t-test, mean test about the village development index and the dimension. We have 5-dimension village development index and the village development index itself. And after we check, we get that the two group is not different, and we can call it this is homogeneous of the starting point at the 2014.
Okay, sorry, maybe Rus'an has another clarification. You still have your hand raised, Rus'an? Do you?
Yeah. No, it was the previous one.
Okay, okay, thanks.
Keep going.
Okay.
This is what we can select until we can call it this what village what we use is homogeneous. Thank you very much, Pak Rus'an. Pak Dewa, have you any adding some point? Thank you.
No, it just a little bit that Pak Rus'an questions actually quite similar with our previous discussion, right? Just to adding up a little bit, Pak Rus'an, like we're trying very careful to identify the characteristic, trying to identify this heterogeneity as close as possible. That's why Udin also present that the disaster event quite equally distributed happening across villages, right? So we're trying to control as rigid as possible in terms of the mitigation activities. Mas Acho's questions very good. Like we're trying to identify how many activities they have. the good part of the data they provided. In fact, actually, Udin also have what kind of mitigation facilities that being developed using Village Fund. So we be able to create like a qualitative information of it, but it's not focus of these studies. So that's the idea. That's why we're trying to exploit the mitigation activities using Village Fund.
Right.
Although later we realized they also another mitigation activities using non-Village Fund. That's the latest part that we're trying to control, to discuss, because it's also affecting the result to some extent.
Right.
So that's why, yeah.
Yeah, again, I think this is very promising work. You can actually write many papers out of this work. But I also agree with Pak Rus'an, you know, to at least in one of those papers, you have some like really policy relevant type of paper that looking at question like, you know, whether Village Fund is helpful in mitigating disaster, and so it help improve the development in the villages, right? And another one way to do that is actually use natural disasters as an instrument, because even if you have very good mitigative inputs, as you call it, but if that particular area or village does not really or is not really exposed to natural disasters, right? The effect would be different to those who have the same mitigative inputs, but really are located close to, you know, earthquake center or, you know, volcanic mountains and things like that, right? So to control for these kind of things too, that will give information to policy as to how mitigative input, but use it, you know, assisted by Village Fund can be, you know, good in developing and in the local development in these areas. Okay, any other questions? I think we just reached our time limit, 1 minute basically. So again, thank you so much for Pak Udin, Pak Dewa, and all the presenters in this session. Thank you for all the attendants, participants, and please join me in thanking the helper, Mas Gus Fikar Yusuf from UGM, who's been helping keeping the time and things like that. And I think we can end here. And shameless self-promotion. I think in 15 minutes there is a session with ANU somewhere. You can find it in that information somewhere there. Okay. Anyone wants to comment or not? Or if there is no one wanting to comment, I'll give this back to Mas Gus Fikar if he wants to close the room. Thank you again. Mas Gus Fikar. Yeah, thank you everyone.
Thank you so much, Pak.
I hope to see some of you in the ANU session very soon.